Oh, he's a wonder in my soul. Bless his name. He's a wonder in my soul. He's a wonder in my soul. He's a wonder in my soul. Bless his name. Come on, give the Lord a hand praise, everybody. Amen. But truly, he is a wonder in my soul. When I look back over my life, down through the years, up to this very moment, everything that he's done, he is truly a wonder. And I just appreciate him so much, y'all, because he didn't have to do it. But he did. Amen. I tell you what, when he saved my soul, that was a wonder. Amen. And I just appreciate him for it. A wretch undone. Amen. And I just appreciate him because he didn't have to do it. And I love the Lord this morning. I thank God for the distance that we've come in the United Kingdom stage. And so let's just see if we can. Yeah, we can. We can make that move. We're here in chapter 22. So I'm going to ask you to turn over to chapter 22 in the book of 1 Samuel. Chapter 22 in the book of 1 Samuel. Praise the Lord. So we've been studying about the kingdoms have come together. They haven't come together. It's one kingdom because they started out as a theocracy. In other words, they started out with God as the ruler. They started out with God as ruler, and so they changed from a theocracy to a monarchy. So Saul became the king that they asked for. King that they asked for. God placed him in a position of authority. God placed him there because that's who he wanted to place there. God could have chosen anybody. And when God does something like that, we call that the sovereignty of God. When God just picks out and he chooses whomever, someone that you might not think fits the bill, but God does it because that's who he wants to be there for that particular time. Whenever God does something, he doesn't just do it just to be doing it. He has a reason to do it. He has a purpose for doing it. And sometimes we don't understand what the reason and purpose is, and that's when we have to go with the flow and have faith in what God is doing as an all-knowing God. Amen? Okay, and so now we're at a place where Saul's kingdom actually has been taken from him. He's still the king. He's still the king, true enough. But God has anointed someone else while he is still the king. So God had someone being prepared. God had someone waiting in the wings who was being prepared to be the next king. And that was David. So now David is on the run for his life, because Saul has filled with jealousy, he's filled with envy, and he just cannot take the transition. He cannot accept the transition that God has in place. The people love David. The people love David. Well, the people love Saul. But Saul had, his mind was just like he didn't want anybody else to have any more attention than he did. And that's something that we just will have to get over. Because someone's going to get some attention just like you, and someone's going to get more attention than you. That's a lot of times in the household when you have sisters and brothers. They call that sibling rivalry. There's 9 other of us. There's 10 of us. Now, we weren't all in the house at the same time, but at any given moment, there were like 6 or 7 of us there. And so with 6 or 7 of us being there, we got jealous of each other. Because sometimes we thought, well, you giving for them. You won't let me do what you're letting her do. And how come I can't stay out? You letting her go out? Different things like that. And so you just have that going on in the house. So somebody is going to, what you feel like they're going to get more attention than the other one. And so the people love David. David slew Goliath. David was their champion because Goliath was wreaking havoc. He was coming out every morning and he was challenging the army of Israel. And the army of Israel was somewhere shaking in their boots, and King Saul was right there with him, shaking in his boots. And so when he slew Goliath, he became the man for real. It's like David has killed Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s, and Saul just couldn't take it. Saul just could not take it. And so it became one thing after another. The evil spirit would come upon him. However, that evil spirit was sent by God. That evil spirit would come upon him. But God had placed David in a position where he was called to the king to play that evil spirit out of the king. So he was around the throne. He was around the king. He could see how the king operated. He could see how the king interacted with the people. And so he would go back and forth to his home in Bethlehem. He would go back and forth to his home until one day, after he slew Goliath, he didn't go back home anymore because Saul placed him in the army. And so now in the army, he became well beloved. The Bible said he moved among the people in wisdom. God had granted him wisdom. And I said last Sunday, if you get wisdom, it's going to come from God. God will give you the wisdom. James says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth it liberally and upbraideth not. God will give you just what you need when you need it. Yeah. How many of you have ever done something and you didn't have any idea about how to do it or what to do, and then when you started doing it, the knowledge came to you, God gave it to you? God gave it to you? I know it's the truth. I saw y'all testifying. He will do it. And when that happens, all you can do is give the glory to God. I have said, oh my God, thank you. I got a paycheck for 14 years off of something I didn't know how to do. That was God. That was God. God gave me the wisdom. He gave me the knowledge. He placed people in my path to help me. He helped me open up my understanding about things I did not understand. And he just gave me what to say and when to say it. He helped me with that. But he can't do that if you lift it up in pride. Amen. And so you got to be in a place of submission. You got to be in a place of humility where you're able to receive. First of all, you're able to acknowledge, I don't know. Amen. And you got to be in a place to receive someone that does know and someone that can help you. And that's where Saul was. He was in a place of pride where, he could not accept what was going on. He could not accept that someone else had just as much. He just could not accept. He couldn't accept David. He couldn't accept the people's admiration and adoration of David. And so he became lifted up in pride. So much so, when he was disobedient, Samuel had to come to him and tell him, now look, when you were little in your own eye, God made you king over Israel. And now you've gotten so lifted up where you are lifted up enough where you're disobeying God. But to obey is better than sacrifice. To obey is better than sacrifice. And so now David is fleeing for his life, and he has he's going from one place to another. And so he was in Gath, in Philistia, and now he's fled to the cave in Adullam, and there at the cave, we know that he's joined by his family members, and we thank God for family members who still have some a trust in you. Family members who still believe there's something good in you. Family members that believe, because you do have some that don't believe, they just believe just like the other people, that you ain't gonna never be nothing and ain't gonna never do nothing. But thank God for some family members that still have your back. And so they joined him there in the cave. And not only them, but if you look at verse 2, chapter 22, verse 2, it says, everyone that was in distress and everyone that was in debt and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And so just like David was a fugitive, then they became fugitives too. So here, it shows that, as I said, that the family members believed in him. And so those people who joined with him, they saw David as a source of hope, a source of strength. And it's good when you can look to your leader and see some hope in your leader, or gain some hope from your leader. Y'all looking at 45, y'all gaining any hope from 45? I know y'all looking at him every morning. Y'all get up and turn on the TV. It's a new circus going on. And so sometimes with the things that's going on in our present political system, we don't have a whole lot of hope, do we? We don't have a whole lot of faith in what's going on. But when you can look at your leader and you can see there's some hope there because of the way he's leading and because he's leading with integrity, then you have hope too. And so they saw David as a source of hope for the kingdom of Israel to be successful. And so they came along with him. They joined with him. And it's something to join yourself with the ones who's going somewhere. Amen. They saw David as going somewhere and taking the kingdom with him. But you have some leaders who's going up, but they're leaving the people behind. Oh, that's happened down through the years. That's happened here. You're going up, and they're gaining riches, and they're gaining fame, and they're gaining education, but they're leaving the people behind. And so they joined him and saw him as a source of hope. So he ended up with about 400 men, and then eventually he would end up with about 600 men. And so God was with them. Now, the Psalms, we said that during this time that David is on the run, he wrote a lot of the songs of Israel. He wrote a lot of songs, and you could see where his heart was, and you could see what was going on in his mind. And I like that, how you can go back to the Psalms to see that. So let's go to Psalm 57, because that psalm is related to David being here at Adullam at this point. Psalm 57, and then we're going to go over to Psalm 142. Psalm 57, just to give you, it wasn't all a bed of roses for David. You know, he's running, and he didn't have to be on the run. He's on the run because of another man's jealousy and another man's envy, another man's hatred of him. And we said so often, hated him without a cause. Hated him without a cause. So he didn't have to be on the run, but he was on the run because of Saul's insecurity. And insecurity is a very dangerous thing. It's very dangerous. And so Saul's insecurity caused him to write this: "Be merciful unto me, O God. Be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yea, in the shadow of thy wings will I make my refuge until these calamities be overpassed. I will cry unto God Most High, unto God that performeth all things for me." I like to read these because, going over to Psalm 142, I like to read these because it shows you who David had his trust in. It shows that even though he was surrounded by 600 other men, he didn't trust in them to protect him. Even though he had wisdom, he didn't trust in his own wisdom. He put his trust in the one who could help him. In Psalm 142, it says, "I cried unto the Lord with my voice." With my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. I poured out my complaint before him. I showed before him my trouble. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, then thou knewest my path. In the way wherein I walked have they privately laid a snare for me. I looked on my right hand and beheld, but there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me. No man cared for my soul. I cried unto thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend unto my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I. And I'm saying that to say that when our hearts become overwhelmed, and they surely will become, then the one that we can go to, the one that can help us, is Jesus. The one that can help us is the one who's never lost a case, the one who's never gone to sleep, the one who's never gotten tired. You know what? We go to him and he's always there to help us, always there ready to assist us. And so before he left, though, let's go back to 1 Samuel, the 22nd chapter. Before he left, David did a good thing. He wanted to protect his mother and his father. And so in protecting his mother and his father, he took them to the king of Moab to shelter them until his exile was over. Look at that. I'm in chapter 22, and I'm in verse 3. And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab, and he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you, till I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hole. But then it came a time there for him to leave. It came a time that he had to get away. And God told him through the prophet, God sent a word through the prophet and said, abide not in the hole, get out of this cave and get out of this place. And David left there and went to the forest of Hereth. And so now we come to a point where do you remember us talking about the man Doeg that was there when David, y'all remember us talking about that? Look at chapter 21. Go back to chapter 21 and look at verse 7. This is when David had gone to Nob, and he had gone to the priest there to get the bread. And before he left, he got the bread and a sword of Goliath. And so it says in verse 7, now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. And his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. So it seems like that verse is really kind of out of place there because they don't say anything else about Doeg. But now when we come over here to verse 22, he comes back into play, and we know why the writer put him there. We know why he's there. That's to give us some background, some understanding of him, the type of man that he is. Now, I'm going to tell you the type of man that he was, okay? Doeg, and you tell me if you know people like this. He was a man who would do anything to gain the leader's approval and receive his rewards. We have another name for that. You know, it's not a very good name. I won't say that, you know, because my baby's here. He takes everything and runs with it. But, you know, people like that. You need to, let's see, you could just think about on your job. Okay. Some people, well, you know, we can just go to a schoolroom. In a schoolroom, you would call that person a teacher's pet. And you would do that because anything the teacher wants, I'll do it. They bring in the teachers gifts. Every day they bringing them something. And, oh, Miss Nunn, you look so pretty today. And just every time you turn around, it's just this and it's that. It's just anything just so they could get a pat on the back. Anything so that they could get the approval, so that if anything comes up, that they'll be the one that's selected or they'll be the one that's chosen. That's the type of person that Doeg was. That's the type of person that he was. And so now, remember, he was there when David came to know. And so he used the knowledge that he had about David to please the king and to raise his own standing before the other people that was around. Because see, like, the teacher's pet, they would then, once they're selected and once they're chosen, they walk around looking at all the other children like, nah, 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 nah. She chose me. I'm better than you. And so we're in chapter 22, and we are in verse 6. So now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, he heard about that, and he wasn't very happy about that. And he said unto his servants, Hear now, you Benjamite, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? What can Jesse do for you? That all of you have conspired against me? See, he's paranoid. He's still paranoid, thinking that it is a conspiracy theory of everyone against him. His insecurity, his paranoia is getting the best of him. And so he says, even you didn't even tell me that my own son was it in cahoots with David. How y'all gonna keep all of that away from me? But verse 9 says, Then answered Doeg, the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw him. I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him and gave him victuals and gave him the sword of Goliath. The Philistine just started. He was snitching. Who said that? He was snitching big time. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. So when he sent for the high priest and all his family and the priest of Nob, and then Ahimelech, just stood there as he was talking and listened to the accusations that Saul had against David. And then Ahimelech actually defended David. He came to his defense. Look at verse 14. It says, Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David? So you need to get a grip. You need to get a grip. And this sounds like the same thing Jonathan said to him. Y'all remember when Jonathan came to his defense? Jonathan said, why? You're messing with David. David hadn't done anything to you. You can't find anybody any more loyal to you than David is. And that's the same thing that Ahimelech was saying to him. He says, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or any more. He said, you're talking, and you're talking, and you're talking, and I didn't even know nothing about the squabble you got going on with David. That's between you and David. And you need to leave it between you and David. Don't pull my household into it. Don't bring us into it. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. Just the paranoia has taken over. See, there was no evidence that he had committed a crime, that Ahimelech had committed a crime. But Saul announced, or a capital crime at that, let me say it like that, nothing criminal enough for him to die. But Saul announced that not just him, but his whole household would die. And so even if he had been guilty, the high priest, It was wrong for Saul to punish his family with him. That was part of the law. Go to Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter and the 16th verse. Saul is breaking all kind of laws, but he didn't care. He didn't care because he was obsessed. He was obsessed with getting David and obsessed with getting David out of his way. Deuteronomy 24. Yes, ma'am.
Did what the Lord told him to do to begin with. What the priest that came and told him what said the Lord. Tell him that he told him what to do. If he had did that, he wouldn't have had to worry about it.
That's exactly right.
Get rid of, and that's the same way with today. You know, if we just do what God tell us to do, we don't have to go and try to do what we want to do, and then we get all paranoid and think everybody against us and everybody talking about us and all that kind of stuff. Pastor said to me, and I said to myself, what God has for me, it is for me.
And certainly.
What he has for you is for you. But my thing is to listen and obey. That's what says the Lord. And he go take care of it. But Saul started out good, but then he just got the big head and started doing what he wanted to do.
Amen.
And it doesn't work with God.
No, it doesn't.
He'll let you go for a while, but then he'll let you know, I'm still God.
Amen.
I cut your legs from under you.
All right. And the thing about it too, Mother, is we never see our part in it. Did you do that? Never see our part in it. We never go back to the root of it to see the part that we have in it. We want to throw it on somebody else, and we want to say it's because of them. It's because then you never take ownership in the part that you played in it. Well, for the most part, I'm making a general statement, but for the most part, we never do that, and it always helps. It always helps me. I have my husband always brings me back. He gives me a reality check. Well, Deborah, you know, you didn't have to do that, or you didn't have that to do, or why did you do that? So that helps you to see it from a different perspective, and you need somebody in your life to help you do that. Because a lot of times you get so caught up in it. You gone on down the road, and you 20 years later, you still think it's somebody else's fault.
Yep. And Lady Deborah, living a spiritual life, you can be successful. Your success in life is not dependent on other people and how they act or whatever. I was thinking just this morning, it's easy to say they selfish, but what God put in my heart is you selfish. You selfish because you won't let them be selfish.
Wow. Anybody else? That's true. That's true. And so in chapter 24, verse 16, the law, it says, the fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. That's the law. Saul knew that. But he just was trampling all over the law because of his personal vendetta that he had against David, a vendetta that was orchestrated in his own mind. And y'all, I'm telling you, that's where some of the biggest fights are. That's where the biggest fights are that we have. They're in our mind. Was doing something this morning, trying to get ready to come to. Looked like I just couldn't get myself together this morning to get to the Lord's Academy. Looked like everything was tight on me when I put it on. And I just wasn't feeling. I was like, you know what? I was just throwing stuff out. I don't feel like this today. I wanted my toes out. I didn't want to be closed up this morning. I just, I went in there and said, how does this look? And my husband said, "This look fine." He said, "You don't look fine." I said, "No, I don't." I said, "Deborah, it's okay. It's all in your mind. It's all in your mind." Our mind can prevent us from going on, doing what God has for us to do. Our mind can prevent us from so many things. We miss out on so many opportunities because of the battle that we have going on in our mind. And so Saul had created and orchestrated this vendetta all in his mind because of what he thought, how he perceived the people accepted David over him. And so now he has gone here. He is at a place and he's getting ready to commit a serious crime. He's ready to kill these people for no reason other than his jealousy. And so it says here in verse 17, it says, and the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priest of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not show it to me. See, that's called a police state, where he wanted all of the people to come back and report to him what was going on. Anybody that opposed him, he wanted everybody to come back and report to him. That's called a police state. So he's trying operating like that. We got time for that. We trying to live our own life. You take care of your own problems. And so he says, but the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. What have they done? And then they are the priests of the Lord too. Israel knew God's history, how God reacted to certain things. And so, they had the fear of the Lord, literally the fear of the Lord in them. And so the king said to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priest, and slew on that day 85 persons that did wear a linen ephod, 85. A score equals 20, so that was 85 priests that he killed without thinking about it, because he wanted the approval of the king. 85 people that he killed without even thinking about it, because he wanted to step up, and he wanted to have some type of position among the people. So I'll do it. You had to ask me twice. I'll do it. Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. And so go back to 1 Samuel, the 8th chapter, and let's see. Because the things now, remember when they asked for a king, Samuel came to them, so they wouldn't go into it with their eyes shut. I want you to go into this with your eyes wide open. I want you to know what you're doing. I want you to know what you're getting. And so this is what's going to happen. Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his instruments of war and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries and to be cooks and to be bakers. And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take the 10th of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to his work. He will take the 10th of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants. And ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. So the things that were prophesied, the things that were told to them, the truths that were told to them, that's what's going to happen when you get a king. Those things are coming to pass. Those and those moreover are coming to pass because of the heart of King Saul. And so Doeg was ready. He stood ready to do that evil deed. He had the permission. He killed them. He killed Ahimelech. He killed the servants of the Lord. And Nob, in verse 19, it says, and Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. So he went beyond what was ordered, and he wiped out the entire population. The entire population. What kind of heart did he have to do that? What kind of heart did he have to do that? All because of seeking self, self-importance. Just all because of who he wanted to be in the eyes of the people. All because he wanted to be known as a king's boy. He did that. And so there was one survivor, though. There was one survivor, Abiathar, son of Ahimelech. And so that would mean that he would become the high priest. In verse 20, Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. And how do you think that made David feel? And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it. That day. God will show you. God will show you. He won't leave you in the blind. You know that? If you yield yourself, if you yield, he won't leave you in the blind. He'll show you that. I knew it. I knew he wasn't just there. I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there. To sound like he's just having a conversation, doesn't it? I knew it that day when he was there. That he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death. And look at that. And so how he must have had such a heavy heart, knowing that they would still be alive if he hadn't gone there to Ahimelech to get the bread and the sword in the first place. Lord have mercy. They're dead because of me. That's what he was feeling. And that's how he could write those Psalms in Psalm 57 and in Psalm 142. Oh my Lord, have mercy on me. Come and see about me. Because my enemies all around me, and they're not just, they after me, they after the people who are associated with me. You know, some people don't like you because of who you associated with. And so, his heart was heavy, and he says, abide thou with me. I'm in verse 23. Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life, but with me thou shalt be in safeguard. So now he's telling Abiathar, don't you go back, because I don't want to have your death on me either. And so he joined David, and they move on to a place called Keilah. So let's see here. I think I have a map here to show you, give you some idea. There it is. Give you some idea of where Keilah is located in reference to where he is now. So he is here now. And he's getting ready to go here to Keilah. So Keilah is a border town. You see Philistia, that's enemy territory. And so here he's in friendlier territory because he's in Judah. So, with this being a border town, then that means that he's close to the enemy. He's close to the enemy, and so that is getting ready to come into play. Thank you. You can get the lights. About 12 miles from Gath. About 10 miles from Hereth. So that would make, though, Keilah very vulnerable, especially during the time of harvest, when the Philistine army would be looking for food, then that would make that town, since it's a border town, it would make them very vulnerable. So easy to come in, easy to come in. So we're in chapter 23. And so the Philistines came up to fight against Keilah, to rob the threshing floors, as I said, during the harvest season. And so David inquired of the Lord, shall I go and smite these Philistines? And that's one thing I like about David.
All right.
That's one thing I like about David. You just strike out on your own about what you getting ready to do. You strike out on your own. You come up with a strategy. You make up a plan about what you getting ready to do. Before he did anything, he inquired of the Lord, shall I go?
Amen.
Lord, you tell me what I should do. Shall I go or should I stay? And and sometimes we get that. We want, Lord, just help me. We just go on and we do what we want to do. And we do what we see somebody else doing. And then we think we ought to do it. And then we think we can do it. And that may not be what the Lord has for you at all.
Amen.
It may not be what the Lord wants you to do. Sometimes the Lord just wants us to sit down. Sit down. You too scatterbrained to be going somewhere trying to do anything. You know what I'm talking about? You need to sit down and get yourself together. You sit down and you pull yourself together. Just come on back together. And so sometimes the best thing is not to do anything, just like sometimes the best thing is not to say anything. And so he inquired of the Lord. Thank God that he was a leader who inquired of the Lord. And I like that, because you have someone who's responsible for the lives of other people. There were 600 other people with him. 600 other people, and then you going up to fight for Israel. You got some other people who are depending on you. They're depending on you to make some wise choices. They're depending on you to do the right thing. And because once you do it, you can't go out talking about, it's too late then.
Look, I was telling Brother Percy yesterday, day before yesterday, that's all that you can do while you're here. All this other stuff, the car you bought, the house you lived in, the degrees you had, ain't nobody studying that after you die. The only thing that you can do is what you do for other people in their life. That's it. All the rest of this stuff ain't nobody even think about it, because you gone.
That is so true. That is so true. But check this out, though. Who is the king? Is presently the king. Saul is still the king. Keilah is still part of the towns that he should have been wanting to protect. Okay? But you the king, instead of you going in talking about to protect the city, you want to go and get David. See, just totally thrown off. Totally thrown off. And so instead of him being concerned about the city, he's getting the people together to go in. Now he's going to tell them that they're going in to protect the city, but that's a lie. They're going in just so they can get David. So we're going to stop here. And
let me say this.
Okay.
Before we stop, and Brother Alex and I were talking about it before. Leaders, like you said, can get off. They get off, and even like I go back over my pastors or whatever, I don't remember the building that you built. I don't remember the program that you had. I don't remember, the only thing that meant something to me is what you put into my life, and it's the same way with children. Whoever, my thing is young black males. I had 2 sons, and I put in my mind, I'm doing the best I can to raise 2 young black males, so that 2 women that have some good husbands. That was my aim. And with this one that's right here, you know, it ain't the money, it's not the clothes or whatever. What he's going to remember most is, did you spend any time with me?
Right, so true.
Were you there? You know, did you make me feel like that I mattered?
Yeah.
You know, we on this thing now about Black Lives Matter. It'll matter when you spend some time with them. It don't matter because you marching.
That's right. Amen. Amen. I thank God for those comments. And with that, we're going to end here and pick up at the same place next Sunday. Give the Lord a hand praise, everybody.